Today's show is brought to you by KegConnection.com. Check out the redesigned KegConnection.com and check out the brand new Brewers Club Rewards program. That's right, earn points with every purchase and get discounts and deals on future orders. KegConnection.com also launched a brand new financing program, so you don't have to wait to get the gear you want today. Go to KegConnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll receive 5% off your order.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you'd like discussed on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them or text them in by using 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep or shoot the text to that number. I am your host, Joshua Steubing, and today joining me is the president and chief keg washer at KegConnection.com, and he gets to dance because you can hear it now. The music's, oh, look at that, dancing. Oh, show everyone that lovely nose. Show everyone the you. Oh God.
No, so you brought the nose thing up. I have to. Whoa! We got the music again.
Yeah. I'm turning it down, and you probably have your headphones. You might have the audio going through other speakers, but here, let me just cut the music.
There we go. Okay. So the reason I wanted to, or you brought up the nose thing, I had to say one thing. The music kind of got me discombobulated there. My friend called me because, I went antelope hunting last week.
Yes.
And I have this thing on my nose, and then I have this injury here. But he just called me and said he just got back from the doctor because before somebody did this to me, I did that to him.
Oh,
and he had his nose, and his finger really hurt, but his nose wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
He got back. He just called me. He said his nose. And he's got a huge nose already, but it's like twice as big. It got an infection and swelled up, and the doctor had to lance it today.
Oh my God! Was it like staph or what was it?
He thinks it's from hitting the windshield when I slammed the brakes on.
Oh, I mean the swelling.
So we had multiple. He said an infection. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had multiple injuries from the hunting.
Do you want to go ahead and clear up the lie that I spread last week? I told everyone last week, I made up a story. To be fair, you didn't elaborate in your original text message to us. So I made up a story that you were fighting an antelope.
Yeah. So I crawled on my hands and knees up to an antelope, and instead of shooting it, I decided to just take it with my knife.
Of course.
And it hit me with the horns, and that's how I got that. Yeah.
Thank you for confirming what we all thought was true, is that you suck at killing antelope. Was
or there could have been beer and a machine involved.
No, what I think is funny is that people who listen to the show, either at the office or your friends, they're the ones who broke it to you that I was spreading rumors. Isn't that how you found out about my antelope story?
Yeah, literally walked in and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you got injured by an antelope." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, that's the best. Let's see. You did. The trip was a success. You told me you came back not empty-handed. That is good. You had a fun time, I imagine. Who wouldn't? Deer season is coming up as well.
So this coming weekend, I'm going to be frantically trying to finish the barn I've been working on,
right,
and get everything together for the opening weekend. So because everybody's going to be staying there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to finish my bar, but I'll at least have the kegerator and the beer fridge there. I just won't have it all built out.
Man, the barn is coming along nice.
Good.
I was just up there 2 days ago, and your beer fridge could use some working on. We still, thankfully, we had some beer given to us from San Diego.
When you say working on, you mean it needs more beer in it?
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Well, beer fridge, but even the kegerator didn't have anything in it. All the kegerator beer's gone.
Right.
I gotta start locking that thing. I have a feeling that some of my beer is disappearing again. So
yeah, that's weird. I did want to say though it is coming along good. Winter brew. Oh, the Prague and Germany trip. That is something I wanted to bring up. James isn't here. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. We are like T minus 13 days or 15 days from, or maybe a little bit longer. I'll round up. It's like 20.
Oh, we're leaving on the 10th, so maybe we could let people do their own math.
Yes, today is Friday the 26th when people are listening to this. So
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this on the 25th. So
whoa! Don't ruin the magic for everyone. This is
sorry.
This is a
Yeah, this
live
is
show.
live on that Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. We are flying out of DFW. Do you know? Is it a morning flight or an evening flight from the States? Do you remember?
It's almost always later in the day.
Okay, because I was
I hate flying that flight in the morning because you get there like super early there and you don't get to go to sleep for like 20 hours. So I try to get into Germany as late as I possibly can.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. The last time you and I went, just the two of us, earlier this year, it was a morning flight. It was a morning flight because we did get there in the morning. And remember, we had to stay up for. I mean, it was another 12 hours before we would feel comfortable.
It wasn't a morning flight. I mean, it wasn't a morning flight. We got there in the early. Like, I mean, when you have one of those flights that I'm talking about, you get there at like 6 a.m.
Oh, sorry. No, you and I got there at like 11 a.m. or maybe noon.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So that's doable because then you just have to remember we got there, we got in the car and we went to Munster.
No, Solingen first.
Oh, Solingen first. Okay.
Solingen first for the knife factory. And we also went to that Harborough, or no, what's the name of the candy? We went to the gummy bear factory, and I went all the way to Germany to bring back candy my kids get at Walmart every other week or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And then you spent way too much on knives, but that's a whole different episode. Let's see here. Before we get into the show, James, last week, you probably weren't listening to the episode at all besides the part where we made fun of you and the antelope. James is at like draft school, or what is it? You went through this.
He's in a draft school. It's learning more about draft and really getting into the technical details of how to determine your restriction and on long draw systems, how you can work out, what type of hose you need, how much choker you need on the end. It's a pretty detailed class. It's about 3 days long. And when I went, James was like, well, I'll try to get back to you on this tonight when I'm in my hotel room. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. You end up being in class all day long and you're working really hard. And then you go out to dinner and then you have a few beers. Well, you have a few beers during class and during dinner, and you're tired by the time you get back to the room. So he should be extremely knowledgeable and worn out by the time he gets back on Friday.
And that reminded me when he said he was going that I remember you went to that back, I want to say when the operation was still out of your home. I remember it being a long time ago. It was like 2000. I want to say you went in 2009. Do you remember when you went?
I don't remember what year, but it was a long time ago. Yeah.
And that's not something James didn't know. This is a one and done, right? This isn't something that a license or certification that you renew often. Like you got the knowledge, you got certified, and you're good to go. It's not like a every 5 years refresher course or something thing, right?
I would love to do it again sometime. I think that, now that I have additional knowledge that I've gained besides that, it would probably be helpful to do it again. So I may do it again sometime.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll join you.
It'd be nice for you to have some knowledge.
So I know why you haven't ever sent me to Florida for it, because I would skip out and I would go.
It's in 4 locations, so I'm just not going to send you to Florida.
Oh, I didn't know it was in 4 locations. That's not rude at all. Let's use that to segue into the actual show I have lined up for us today. Because James isn't here, and because you are a smart man on brewing. I know it's kind of our shtick where I'm the real dummy, you're the kind of dummy, and James is supreme of knowledge. But I know people really do appreciate your knowledge on equipment and things like that. So I gathered some questions that are mainly equipment focused, And so starting with Linda, who using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com wrote, I watched the Jockey Box video you have on YouTube and was wondering why exactly you are using gas line on the cold plate. It is a great video, but you didn't specifically mention anything, so I thought I would ask. Thanks for the great podcast. Mr. Burns, you were the star of that video. Why'd you use gas
The
line?
reason I was doing this is because somebody was walking in my office about to talk. So
I had to hush him. Good.
So anyway, yeah, that's a great question, and maybe we should change that, or maybe what we should do. I mean, primarily, I'd like to get out of the way. It's pretty much your fault that it's there, right?
Yeah.
You did the video, so I think you should take full responsibility. No, it's so the red hose we use for gas line a lot, but it is actually a dual durometer liquid hose as well. So, and what I mean by dual durometer is really, really good beer hose, like the one that we use. It's typically dual durometer, so it has a harder inside and a softer outside. And what that does is that harder inside retains the plasticizer. It doesn't release any plasticizers, so you don't get any of that taste from the beer. So that red hose is made the same way, and it's actually clear on the inside layer and red on the outside layer. So it works fine for beer. In fact, in a lot of situations, you use it for beer when you're doing a lot longer run, or you don't want to, you don't want to have any restriction on it. You can use that.
Do you think it is a detriment of marketing in our industry that the hose is labeled liquid or gas? Do you think that matters as much, labeling it that way?
I think the red hose being gas hose just makes it easier for people to identify. And in hindsight, I'll have to say that we probably shouldn't have used a red hose on there. We probably should have used, even if we used a larger hose, we should have used a clear one. We definitely have 1/4 inch that we could use. The thing is, those Jockey Boxes, they come with a larger nipple. So we switched out the nipple and replaced it for the 3/16 hose, but we left the larger nipple on the other side because we didn't need smaller hose, and it would make the kit slightly more expensive to switch the nipple out because it comes with that nipple.
Right, interesting. And I do know some other questions on the video that came up that are kind of relevant. We can knock out right now because it's relevant to the show. People often also ask when they're building their own Jockey Box about the coils or the cold plate. We chose the cold plate for the video. I know because the KegConnection.com had that DIY kit on sale, which I think it might still be on sale. Is there a reason beyond just having to pick one that you chose a cold plate? Because I know in our build for HomebrewCon, we're using a cold plate too. I haven't seen a build that you've done, specifically you or James, that used anything but a cold plate. Is there a specific reason why?
Yeah, I've used the coils as well. In fact, I had a hunting trip, maybe I don't know how many years ago, where I did the coils. So I had a 2-coil Jockey Box. This is what it boils down to. This is kind of a quirky answer, but I'm going to give it anyway. The coils are definitely better if you're trying to take a warm keg and serve beer out of it, because basically you need all of that length of the coil to cool the beer down.
Right.
So if you've got 120 feet of coil and it's submerged in ice water, then it will cool that beer down from a warm keg to a cold pour at the end. Right. Fact of the matter is, I never pour beer out of a warm keg. I just don't like to pour beer out of a warm keg. I always keep the keg cool anyway, so there's no reason for me to use that. But you don't have to keep it ice cold. You just can't let it get, it can't be warm. And that may be somewhat of a regional thing because we're in Texas and we tend to not want our kegs to be outside warm because they're not warm. They're 105 degrees, right? That's too hot. So, if you were somewhere in the north, then it might be fine to use the coil and let your beer be whatever the ambient temperature is, or if you're doing it in the winter. But I'm just used to using the other ones. They work fine if you have the beer cool and then you're using it to do the final serve, and it's going through that, and it makes it nice and cold, and also gives you a really good pour.
And then one other question, just to wrap up the Jockey Box theme for this first question. Shank size, what is too much? Because I know people have asked, I've had questions from KegConnection.com customers who say, hey, I have a couple of 5-inch shanks that are overstocked or left over because they don't use the same keezer anymore. They pulled the tower. Can I use it on a Jockey Box? And I know the answer to this, but I wanted you to what is it? Like 5-inch is the typical or standard for a fridge kit. Is 5-inch too much drilling through a Igloo or Coleman or whatever type of cooler for a Jockey Box setup?
The age-old question, how long does your shank need to be? Yes. So I'm going to answer that in two parts. Okay. First, for a Jockey Box, it doesn't need to be very long because it's going through the tubing. It's inside the ash. I mean, it doesn't really matter because there's an advantage to having it longer in some situations. And so I guess it would be easier to explain that than it would be to explain why it doesn't matter as much in Jockey Box. Let's say that you have a walk-in cooler or you have a fridge that you've converted over and you have a shank in there. A lot of people are like, hey, I bought this shank and it's 6 inches long and now it's sticking out, or a keezer even. It's sticking out 3 inches of my keezer. I want one that's 2 inches shorter. I always say, well, I don't know. I mean, I would leave the longer one in there. And the reason is you've got this shank, part of it's inside, part of it's outside. The more that's inside is basically absorbing that cold. And then when it absorbs that cold, it pulls that all the way through the shank and keeps the shank cold even to the end. So that when you have beer going through it, that beer's not hitting a real warm spot at the end and turning into foam immediately. So there is an advantage to having a longer shank than what you actually need just to clear the space. And that's what the advantage is.
Okay, right on. And that makes sense. Maybe I didn't know the whole answer. I was pretending well there at the beginning, but I knew that. I knew that. I've answered that question a million times. Linda, so the gist of it, the red line was used because we had it, and it was for the diameter's sake, not because of the color or for the printed purpose of it. Like red hose isn't always for just gas, and clear hose isn't always just for liquid, I guess is the gist. We can wrap up her question. Thank you for submitting that, Linda. Moving on to question number 2 from Lucas, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Lucas writes, hey, gents, love the show all the way from New Zealand and have to tell James that I know how rough it is to be in the States and have people think that you talk funny. I haven't been homebrewing. Here, I'm going to do the rest of this. I haven't been homebrewing very long, but I know I'm ready to upgrade my kettle.
Several listeners.
Yeah, everyone from New Zealand tuned out. We don't talk like that. Dingo, baby. In your opinion, what should I look for? Any brand names or specific sizes? Shouldn't be brewing bigger than 5-gallon batches anytime soon, but would it be worth getting a 10-gallon kettle anyway? Keep it up. Okay, so the question is kettle upgrade. What are our opinions? Todd, take it away.
First of all, I'd like to say, I think that was a fairly decent Australian accent.
It's New Zealand. New Zealand.
Okay, so this is another one of those things that comes up a lot. So a 5-gallon kettle, some people will say a 5-gallon kettle is too small. It's really not too small if you're doing just standard extract type recipes or extract recipes where you've got some steeping grains, that sort of thing, because you never actually in the boil, you don't ever get up to 5 gallons. So you want to have enough room to put your liquid in, which is, probably going to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 gallons, depending on the style and everything else, and then have some room for the boil, so you don't boil over. So a 5-gallon works fine for a lot of situations, especially when you're beginning. And the other thing is, a 5-gallon kettle is fairly inexpensive, especially if you buy a kind of a real standard one that's not all clad or doesn't have a clad bottom, that sort of thing. if you're starting out, it works fine. If you're going to start to progress in brewing and go to all grain or do some other things like that, you really want a kettle that has a clad bottom, so it transfers the heat well, so it maintains the heat well. I mean, it doesn't warp, all those types of things. You want something that's going to be able to handle, particularly if you're doing propane, you got a lot of heat on there. I like a nice solid pot. My wife and I have this, I was almost going to say discussion occasionally, because she'll buy a skillet at the store and bring it home, and I'm like, and this thing's flimsy. I don't want to cook on this. She does 95% of the cooking, and she's fine with it. But I want one that's got a really solid bottom, and is a real well made one. And we've got a lot of those that we sell, and that's the reason for the cost difference is the thickness of the metal, the thickness of the bottom, and if it's got multiple types of material on the bottom.
Yeah, and I can say personally, I've been using with my dad the 10-gallon with 2 couplers on it, which one is a thermometer and the other one is a ball valve from Spike. And I love it. Me and my dad absolutely love it. It gets up to temperature very quick. It holds temperatures fairly easy. Cooling seems to also be a streamlined process for us using it. We're still only doing extract in 5-gallon batches, and the 10-gallon, where I will say I've noticed a big advantage. I've not always been the most careful with boilovers, and in a 10-gallon, you really don't have to be that careful. Like there's a lot of headway for it to mess up, or pardon me, to boil up and not boil over, all over the ground or whatever. So I've appreciated that, and I got it too because I knew at some point my dad and I were gonna do 5-gallon all grain batches, and I knew the 10-gallon would be future proof. Now, Lucas is talking about upgrading. I don't know off the top of my head if there is even a premium, I'm doing air quotes here, but I mean like of the big brands, your SS Brewtech, your Spike, your Blickman, your Amstel. I don't know if there is any of those that even make a 5-gallon. They all kind of start at the 8-gallon and go up from there, don't they?
That's a great question. I'm sure somebody does, but off the top of my head, you kind of stumped me on that one. I'm not sure.
Woo-hoo.
I mean, we sell a 5-gallon now that we sell for a lot of people that are starting out, but it's not a super heavy duty one. It's fine for doing your first few batches, and it's not very expensive, but it's not the best as far as long term usability.
Well, and that's what I was getting at too, is just telling Lucas, to the best of my knowledge, people will write in when I'm wrong, or when you're wrong, or when anyone's wrong on the show. They're not shy about telling us. What my point was is he may, he was talking about, I'm not going to brew anything bigger than 5 gallons, so would it be worth getting a 10-gallon? To answer that part of the question, I would say undoubtedly, yeah, it's worth it. And also, you're probably going to find yourself, if you go with one of the bigger known brands like what I listed before, you're going to find that they're still very reasonably priced. And I think 10-gallon is the standard that they sell for most of those brands. I know if you're brewing 5-gallon batches, even in extract.
I know Amstel for sure has an 8 because I just ordered some more of them. So I mean, an 8 would be plenty as well. But you're right. If you're going to do all grain and you want to have the thermometer and you want to have the fittings, that's when all that stuff starts. So you can get a fairly decent pot that's smaller, but when you start putting the fittings on it, that 10 gallons kind of your starting point. And I mean, the one is here 20 gallons. So yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was about to say, for when I upgrade any piece of equipment, the one big area that I'm looking at in regards to what I'm going to buy is the future proofability, if that's a word, of what I'm buying. If I buy an upgraded faucet, my ideal upgrade would be a flow control with creamer action. Why? Because boom, I've got my bases covered in being able to pour exactly how I want every time, as well as add that artificial head for certain styles of beer, or if I have to keep my keg pressured low for whatever reason, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like having all the bells and whistles when I can with as my budget permits. So with the kettle, like you said, having a welded one, or one that is welded for a coupler, whether you're going to put a thermometer on it, or a threaded thermometer, obviously, or a ball valve, which would be my number one recommendation. having a ball valve changed my life, and it's kind of hyperbolic, but instead of having to do the auto siphon and have it go from the kettle to my fermenter, just having the tubing go straight to the bottom of my fermenter, open up that valve. Oh man, that's wonderful to work with.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think you could get too big on a kettle. Like, I mean, I don't know that I'd want to brew a 5-gallon batch on a 20-gallon kettle
Good
either.
point.
So there's a good happy medium there somewhere. But I think that everybody should, from Keg Connection, should buy an 8, a 10, a 15, a 20, and a 30 personally. But,
Yeah. Oh yeah. And this is the time where we go, think of all those Brewer Club reward points that you would build up. Wow. Yeah. Oh,
no, I think I had definitely have more than one size kettle. If I'm doing a smaller batch, I'll use a smaller one, and obviously larger one, a larger batch.
well,
So.
and the kettle that comes with kits, whether they get it from you or from their local homebrew supply shop or wherever, those 5-gallon, what we'll call entry level kettles, don't get rid of them, because we found many purposes for them. You know, you can use it for future batches. Sometimes we do double brew days, or if you're, when we end up moving to a all grain setup, I can still use that kettle for getting my sparge water. You know what I mean? Getting the
Soup.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of uses.
The possibilities are endless. But Lucas, thank you so much, mate, for I mean, that was cringy. I'm sorry, Lucas. I was trying to think of something very stereotypical New Zealand. Rugby, and they're really good at MMA and football. They're really good at football. Thanks, Lucas.
Maybe you should have Googled New Zealand before we did this.
Oh, maybe I should have just stopped recording before I just started putting my foot in my mouth. Anyway, Todd, that is actually it. It is wrap up time. Believe it or not, you've had me for about 30 minutes. Or that sounded wrong too. I appreciate you coming on the show and doing this in the absence of James. And we will talk soon, my friend.
Great. It was fun. Thanks. Take care.
And that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them in by dialing 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep. Or, of course, you can text message those questions to that same number as well. Thank you to our show sponsor, KegConnection.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to KegConnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll save 5% off your order. On behalf of Todd Burns, the absent James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Steubing. Thank you for listening.